Oh, all right. And the chat's open, folks. I trust everyone will be on their sort of most respectful behavior, but we had some feedback that folks missed the chat, so we're going to open that up today.
All right, here we are.
Okay.
All right, hope everyone can hear me. Good morning. Welcome to our 2024 Summer Nominating Convention for the Pacific Green Party. I believe the agenda is being shared. I will bring up my own in just a second. Sorry, folks, trust Google to play hide and seek. Here we go. So I'm going to read our agenda real quick, just for the record. From, I assume now, about 11:10, and hopefully as quickly as possible, we will do our land acknowledgement. There'll be a link provided to a video by an artist and scholar named Little Bird, who will encourage people to think beyond what is done via the medium of land acknowledgement. At 11:10 to 11:30, we'll have a pre-recorded RCV presentation and a Q&A afterwards. At 11:30 to 11:50, we will do an overview of our open races, and that will be open for discussion. Please limit comments to 2 minutes. At 11:50 to 12:10, we will do local campaign updates with our guests, James Dashiell, Mike Belstein, Andrea Kennedy-Smith, and Kevin Levy. Each of them will speak for 5 minutes. At 12:10 to 12:30, we'll have a Q&A with local candidates. From 12:30 to 12:45, we'll have a little break. From 12:45 till 1 o'clock, we will hear from the candidates seeking nominations for statewide races at 5 minutes for each candidate. At 1 o'clock to 1:20, we'll have a question and answer and possible arguments against with statewide candidates. At 1:20 to 1:35, we'll do congressional campaign updates with Justin Phillip, who is overseeing us today, Joe Meyer and Andy Townsend. At 1:35 to 1:45, we'll do a Q&A with congressional candidates. At 1:45 to 1:50, we'll have an update on the National Presidential Nominating Convention. At 1:50 to 1:55, we will discuss dates for future conventions. And at 1:55 to 2 o'clock, instructions for voting. Ballots will be sent out today, and there'll be a, pardon me, there'll be a voting deadline of 8 o'clock on Tuesday, July 23rd. And now I will continue with we okay on your end, Justin?
We're great. I'm going to get that link ready for folks for the Beyond Land acknowledgements, but if you want to go into the land acknowledgement, that'd be great.
Thank you. We, participants at this convention of the Pacific Green Party, recognize and honor the indigenous peoples of this region on whose ancestral lands we now stand. These include the Willamette, Tumwater, Tillamook, and Siletz, Clackamas, Clatskanie, Multnomah, and Wallala Chinook peoples, the Tualatin Kalapuya, Umpqua, Molalla, Rogue River Shasta, who today are part of the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde, Klamath, Northern Paiute, Athabascans, Coos, Siuslaw, and many other Native communities who make their homes along the Columbia River and its tributaries. We also recognize that this land was taken by violence and that exploitation and injustice persists. 1, in the system of laws and government. 2, in the influence of big money in an antiquated electoral system. And 3, in latent attitudes and prejudices against historically marginalized and oppressed people. Many of these persistent behaviors that people historically in power may not be aware of. Latent inherited patterns of thought and action that ignore, diminish, or trivialize the contributions of Indigenous, women, Black people of color, and other marginalized and/or oppressed people. We hereby commit to listening with intention and openness, to value the participation of historically oppressed communities. We acknowledge that all marginalized voices and oral traditions have their unique wisdom to help solve the problems we face. It is therefore our intention to restore and work both within the community and within ourselves to recognize those attitudes, working collaboratively to restore balance on earth and amongst ourselves. We will not cast aside or minimize those voices when they point to latent discrimination. We respectfully acknowledge and honor all Indigenous communities, past, present, future, and are grateful for their ongoing and vibrant presence. We also thank the ancestors, spirit, God, or simple kindness for their guidance in ensuring that our thoughts and intentions during this meeting reflect mutual respect and compassion. Thank you.
Excellent. And I put the link in the chat for everyone there. If you want to put some deeper thought into the whole idea of land acknowledgements and how we can go beyond land acknowledgements, there's a really good presentation. And again, I shared that link just now in the chat. We'll also include that link in a follow-up email after the convention's all done. So if you don't save it now, you'll have another chance later.
Thanks. Okay, and we'll follow with our, excuse me, folks. We'll follow with our RCV presentation, hopefully followed by Q&A.
All right, give me a moment. So this is going to be an interview that was about a month ago with our own Blair Bobier and one of his colleagues on KGW. The video lasts about 24 minutes, but it's a really good overview of RCV, where we are now and where we're headed.
Hello and welcome to Straight Talk. I'm Laurel Porter. Oregon's primary election 2024 is behind us, and now we can look ahead to the November election. And in Oregon, you're going to be hearing a lot about something called ranked choice voting. Instead of choosing just one candidate, voters can choose several, ranking them by preference. It's something Portland voters will use when deciding the mayor and
Looks like the video froze.
Sorry, I'm not sure what happened there. Let's give Justin a minute.
Are we having issues?
Looks like the video's frozen.
Really? It's playing on my end. Sorry, folks. All right, I'm going to try it again.
Thanks.
Oregon and nationally. He is a public interest attorney who's been a member of the Oregon Bar for 35 years. He and State Representative Dan Rayfield were the co-sponsors of the successful 2016 Benton County Ranked Choice Voting Ballot Measure. Welcome to my guests, Soamora and Blair Bobier. Welcome to Straight Talk. It's so nice to have you here.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks. Appreciate being here.
Well, let's start with you, Blair, because this is a big change going from ranked choice voting from the traditional ballot to this ranked choice voting, and it could be confusing, maybe somewhat intimidating to voters. So what is the most important thing that you want our viewers, voters, to know about ranked choice voting?
Very simply, Laurel, it's a better way to vote. I think that we as voters want to be able to have our voices heard. We want to make sure that our values are translated into our votes. We want to elect people that share our values. Right now, people are pretty frustrated with government and elections. There's a lot of negative attack ads out there. Campaigns are toxic. And ranked choice voting is a way to improve our elections, improve the political atmosphere, and I think it will give us hope for the future of our democracy, which is something we could really use right now.
Well, so let's continue to set the stage. How big of a deal is this for Oregon? How significant, and how are you preparing for it?
Yeah, so, like Blair said, one of the things that we are seeing as we go out and talk to Oregonians is that people are ready for a meaningful change, and our coalition of supporters includes over 45 organizations, and this includes many different communities here in Oregon. That's everything from young people to seniors to working class families, as well as rural voters. And I think that one of the uniting threads of why all of these different communities are supporting this change is that ranked choice voting can deliver on better representation, regardless of what your background is as a voter. And ultimately, it can lead to more accountable leadership.
And we'll get into all the details of that in just a moment. But let's take a look at a sample ballot. If this passes in Oregon, what voters would see when they open their ballot. So Sol, walk us through this. What are we looking at here?
Yeah, so when voters receive their ballot, they now have the ability to rank the candidates in their order of preference. So for example, as a voter, you could say, this candidate really resonates with me. I'm going to place them as my first choice. This other candidate also resonates with me. I will place them as my second choice. It is up to each voter how many of those candidates they would like to rank. And if there's only one candidate that is speaking to you, you can just rank that one candidate and not rank any of the others. The thing, though, is that you have that choice now. Unlike the current system where you can only pick one, you have the ability to express your preferences and really use those rankings.
So how does it work in the primaries? The past Oregon primary, there are a couple of runoffs, top two people running off in November. Would we still see runoffs?
Yes, so this would be used in both the primary and the general election. So in the primary, each major political party would be able to use the ranking so that voters can determine which candidate from that party will move on into the general election.
And there'll still be closed primaries for the parties, right? That won't change. Well, let's take a look at a little video from fairvote.org. It's just a clip. That's an example of how this works, and then we'll talk about it.
Here, you select orange as your first choice candidate, yellow as your second, pink as your third, and green as your final choice. The first choices are counted. Yellow earned 35%, orange 21%, pink earned 28%, and green earned 16% of the vote. Because nobody won more than 50%, the candidate with the fewest votes is eliminated, and voters who picked him as their first choice have their ballots count for their second choice. This continues until a candidate receives more than half of the votes, or 50% plus 1.
How to open your car door while submerged underwater. A fatal construction flaw in all recent.
So the math might be a little confusing to people. I know it is for me and how it works, and that could lead to a little bit of distrust in the system. So Blair, help us understand how these ballots are counted.
Sure. So first of all, I want to say that the only math that people really need to know is 1, 2, 3. That's how they rank their ballots. That's the voter experience, and that's how simple it is. I love telling how my younger son used ranked choice voting in his kindergarten class, and they would use it to pick the projects that they were going to do on project day. So, Legos were very popular, but there's only so many Lego pieces to go around. So kids could put 1 for their first choice for Legos, maybe puzzles were number 2, finger painting number 3, and kids can do it. It's really simple. Ranked choice voting is used all around the world. It's used in our country from Alaska to Maine, from Utah to New York City, and in our Benton County, where I live, and where we put it on the ballot there. So it's really a very simple process.
Let's talk about how we got here, because a lot of people at home may not realize that this ballot, this measure, is going to be on the November ballot. And you mentioned other states that are using this, but this is the first time that it's been referred to the ballot by a legislature, by the Oregon legislature last year. So tell us a little bit more about the pathway from the legislature to the ballot in November.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. This is the first time that a legislature has referred a ranked choice voting measure to the ballot. So there was a tremendous amount of community support to bring ranked choice voting statewide. There were groups like the League of Women Voters, the Communities of Color Coalition, the ACLU, and these advocates worked with representatives in the legislature to craft a bill. There was a lot of input from the Secretary of State, from county elections officials, and we all worked together and hammered out something that we think is a pretty good bill. It was vetted through a number of hearings, and then it passed both houses of the Oregon legislature, and they referred it to the ballot, and that's what we'll see come November.
And you mentioned Benton County. So Portlanders are going to be using this in November for the first time for city council, for the mayor, for the auditor's race. But they're not the first ones to use this in Oregon. Benton County voters have been using it, and you were instrumental. You co-sponsored the measure along with State Representative Dan Rayfield for the successful 2016 Benton County measure. How is it working there? You live in Benton County.
I do.
You use this. How's it working there? How do voters like it?
Voters love it, and voters are really satisfied with it just about everywhere it's been used. They like it, it's simple, they prefer it to the system that we have. So we passed it in 2016 in Benton County to use for our county commissioner races. We implemented it in 2020, and then shortly thereafter, the Corvallis City Council took it upon themselves to vote to use it for Corvallis elections for City Council and for mayor. And it was decisive in choosing the last mayor of Corvallis.
So let's talk about how this affects candidates. Now, supporters of ranked choice voting say it creates more of a pathway for candidates who might have similar values or backgrounds to run and not worry about splitting the vote. So how does that work? How and what kind of evidence do you have that that helps?
Yeah, so with ranked choice voting, because as a voter you're able to mark those different preferences, this is also positively impacting candidates because they don't have to worry that they're taking votes away from a similar candidate. One of the things that happens a lot with the current system is that candidates decide not to join a race at all because they have the fear that if there's a similar candidate, either in terms of background or in terms of the issues that they care about, they are going to spoil that election and take those votes away. And so with ranked choice voting as a voter, you don't have to think about that anymore. You don't have to think strategically about who has the best chance of winning. You can just rank the candidates in your order of preference, and ultimately, if your first choice doesn't win, you have backup choices. And so it is eliminating this fear that your voice will not count in that election, because ultimately, if you did rank those other candidates, you do have a greater say.
Let's talk about actually out campaigning. Let's say a candidate is out campaigning. They see a street sign in somebody's yard, a campaign sign for somebody. They might think, well, I won't go to that door because they're already going for that candidate. Does that change things?
Absolutely. You know, with ranked choice voting, candidates need to have a majority of the votes to win. And it's also changing the way that they're campaigning, like you said, because, you know, let's say that we're both candidates that have like-minded values. It benefits both of us to say, hey, if you support me, put me as your first choice, put Laurel as your second choice, and vice versa. And so you really are able to build a coalition amongst other candidates that support similar issues. And, you know, one of the examples I can think of is in Maine, in their 2018 governor's race, there were two Democratic candidates, Betsy Sweet and Mark Eves, and they did exactly that. Their ads were very positive, very civil, and they told voters, if you like both of us, then rank both of us.
And supporters of the system also say that it lowers barriers for more representation for women and candidates of color. Well, how does that work, and what evidence do you have that that's working?
Yeah, so in the places that do use ranked choice voting, we are seeing that more women, more young people, more first-time candidates, and candidates of color are deciding to enter the race, and it's not only that, they are winning at higher rates. And I think one of the reasons this is happening is because, again, they don't have that fear of splitting the vote with those similar candidates, and voters are able to rank those preferences. And as a voter, you can say, you know, traditionally, maybe this candidate wouldn't have a real chance in the current system, but with ranked choice voting, I know that I can believe in them enough to put them as my first choice because I have all of those other choices as well. And one of the places I really like to emphasize is New York York City in 2021 for their city council, they had a historic, diverse council with a majority of women and a majority of people of color. That was the first time in history that had happened, and it was thanks to ranked choice voting.
So they're using ranked choice voting there.
They are using it.
And we'll talk more about other places that are using it in a bit. So we talked about candidates. What about voters, Blair? How does this benefit the voter?
Voters get to, as Sol was saying, they get to vote their conscience. They can vote their first choice. They have backup choices. It gives them more voice. It gives them more power with their ballot. It's really a way to be more expressive with the ballot.
And we didn't see a great turnout in the Oregon primary in May. Will this affect turnout? Do you think, is there any evidence that turnout goes up with this system?
We would hope so. You give people more choices, and there are more candidates in the race, and we think that that will bring people out. Right now, people think if they have to vote for the lesser of two evils, they might as well stay home. But if there are more choices and their vote itself is going to be more meaningful, we think that's going to drive turnout up.
And I think I was reading that the youth vote might go up. Do you think that's going to happen?
We see that. We see that in a lot of places, and we've seen that in our own research, that younger voters are much more open to this. They love it. They're ready for change, and they're big supporters of ranked choice voting.
Okay, so we've done a lot of cheerleading here for ranked choice voting, but not everybody is a fan. There has been some opposition. In fact, when you were debating in the legislature and presenting your ideas, a lot of Republicans came out against it, including Representative Bobby Levy, who said ranked choice voting ultimately disconnects voters from issues and allows fringe candidates to win elections. As OPB reported, she argued it could result in candidates with relatively few preference votes winning office without a true mandate to govern. She called it obtuse deconstruction of political accountability. Blair, let's talk about that criticism.
Sure.
Is it possible for a fringe candidate to win without a mandate from voters?
No, it's just the opposite. So that there's no evidence to support that statement. It is rhetoric divorced from reality. Ranked choice voting is a majoritarian system, so you have to have broad-based support. You have to have a majority to win. It's our current system that could produce candidates with very little support, or a so-called fringe candidate, because right now there could be such vote splitting that a candidate can win a race with 20% of the vote. If you have a lot of candidates, you could win with 15% of the vote. So it's really quite the opposite.
And the other part of her argument, she says it disconnects voters from the issues. What about that?
Again, completely opposite. With ranked choice voting, it's going to be issue-oriented because, as Sol was saying, candidates want to reach out to the supporters of their opponents. So they don't want to trash that person. They want to say, look, this is where we agree. We both support labor unions, or we both support the environment, or we both support renters' rights. Whatever it is, they're going to look for the commonality and not be divisive.
Well, some county clerks in Oregon didn't really want to go along with this. They thought it was going to make the ballot too long with all of those races. So if this is passed by voters in November, it would not include, I understand, legislative races, right?
Correct.
So what really was their objection? Is that something they might come around to, do you think?
So we've worked closely with the county clerks as well as the Secretary of State's office for a number of years at this point. And in fact, because of their input, we decided to delay implementation of ranked choice voting until 2028. So hopefully we'll pass it in November, and then the clerks and the Secretary of State's office will have 4 long years to get everything ready. And we've worked with them. We'll continue to work with them. They're the folks on the front lines. They're running our elections. They do an awful lot of work. It's relatively thankless. We thank them, and we're happy to work with them in every and any way possible.
A lot of voters are discouraged by all the negative campaigning, the negative ads. We saw a lot during the primary in Oregon, and probably going to be a lot more as we go into the general election in November. So how does this affect negative campaigning? Do you think there'll be a reduction in negative ad campaigning if we were to go to ranked choice voting?
Absolutely. I do think there would be a reduction in that negative campaigning. And, you know, it really goes back to the fact that candidates need to be broadly supported. In the current system, like Blair said, you do not need a majority of the votes to win. And so you can focus on appealing to special interests. You can focus on being the most well-funded candidate and really using those negative tactics to attack other individuals for who they are or for their personalities, and not really about their platform. And so with ranked choice voting, because you do need to broadly appeal to voters, you need to talk about the things that are on voters' minds. You need to really address what the big issues are in your campaigning, because that is what voters truly care about. And it's the same with the other candidates, right? It benefits you as a candidate to align yourself with a like-minded candidate. And so in that way, you do have this incentive to really think about what is that common ground with other candidates, right? What are the shared issues that we care about, and not do those negative attacks.
And Blair, before we go to break, I want to ask you something that the San Francisco Chronicle said in an op-ed. They said this strategy is just gaming the system. Is it?
I don't think so. I think that's nonsense. I was fortunate enough to be in San Francisco and in the Bay Area for an election and watch this on the ground. And I can tell you that candidates cooperated. Some of them held speaking events together. They put out joint mailers where they would say, vote, this slate, 1, 2, 3. Groups like the Sierra Club and different organizations also ranked candidates in order of preference. And the San Francisco Chronicle did their endorsements in order of preference. So that's the fact. This gaming thing is nonsense. It's really just a very straightforward way to express your preferences and to get a candidate with majority support.
Blair and Sol, thank you. We need to take a break right now, but when we come back, we'll look at what other states are using ranked choice voting and how it's working there. We're back in 2 minutes.
If you sleep on your side, I bet you hate your pillow, and this is why. They might be as
Welcome back to Straight Talk. I'm Laurel Porter. In November, Oregonians will get the chance to decide whether to adopt a whole new voting system. It's called ranked choice voting. If voters approve November's measure, it would go into effect starting in 2028 for primary and general elections, including president, Congress, governor, and Oregon Secretary of State. The measure would also let cities and counties opt in to using the ranked choice voting system in their local elections. Welcome once again to my guest from the nonprofit Oregon Ranked Choice Voting. Sol Mora is the organization's political director, and Blair Bobier is a leading expert on ranked choice voting, both in Oregon and nationally. Welcome once again.
Thank you.
I want to revisit and kind of clarify something we talked about in the first segment about runoffs. And when I asked you about it, Sol, you were talking about the statewide races and federal races. But what about the local races, Blair? Are we going to see primaries? Like Portland didn't have a primary because people are voting in November. Help us understand that.
Right. So instead of having 2 rounds of elections like has been happening in Portland and Multnomah County, the primary, the first round, will be eliminated in May, and the entire election will be shifted to the November general election. And that's better because that's when voter turnout is at its highest. So ranked choice voting will be used in the November election, and if someone doesn't get a majority of the vote in the first round of counting, the votes get counted again, and the person who makes a majority, 50% plus 1, will be declared the winner.
So as we're seeing with the Portland citywide races, primaries are eliminated, and we won't be seeing those runoffs that we're seeing in Multnomah County coming up in November, right?
Yes, 1 election instead of 2.
Okay. Well, so let's talk about where else this is being used. And we have a map that shows the jurisdictions, the states and the jurisdictions using it. So kind of tell us a little bit about what we're seeing here.
Absolutely. So ranked choice voting is currently used in over 50 different places here in the United States. I will also note it is used in other countries, but for the sake of this, let's focus on the United States. And it ranges from the local level all the way up to the statewide and the federal level. At the local level, some of the cities that use it include Santa Fe, New Mexico, San Francisco, California, Salt Lake City, Utah, New York City, New York. And at the statewide and the federal level, there are 2 states that currently use it, and those are Maine and Alaska. There are also a couple of states that use it for voters that are in the military or overseas, but again, in total, it does range from the local level all the way up to the statewide
So Oregon,
level.
if it passes, would be the 3rd state to use it statewide. Blair, what are voters saying in Alaska and Maine and some of these jurisdictions about ranked choice voting?
So everywhere that it's been used, voters like it. They use it, they use their rankings, so they'll take a first choice, they'll also use a second choice or a third choice, and the responses have been overwhelmingly positive. We know that people prefer it to the current system. They like having the choices, and they like the fact that their vote can be more expressive.
I read an article on the Oregon Ranked Choice Voting website, which is very thorough, so worth checking it out. But it did say that this is not a panacea for what's wrong or what people think is wrong with the American political system. It's not going to fix everything, right? People shouldn't set their standards that high.
Nope, there's no silver bullet. It's a step in the right direction. It opens our elections up. It brings more voices in, gives people more choices. But there's other ways that we have to reform our elections. For example, campaign finance reform was passed in the legislature. And in fact, in San Francisco, public financing of elections coupled with ranked choice voting produced the most diverse board of supervisors in San Francisco history.
So we've mentioned that Portland is going to start using this system in November, and we're going to have on some election officials on in late August, early September to talk about the Portland elections. Portland and Multnomah County elections officials will be here, so we'll dig into that then. But give us a preview. I mean, voters approved this in 2022 by 58% with the yes vote, also for the multi-district jurisdictions too. So tell us more about what Portland voters can expect come November when they get their ballots.
Yeah, so when voters receive their ballot in November, they will now be able to rank the candidates for local offices. So that includes the mayor, the city auditor, and the city council. You will be able to say, here are my top choices, rank them in your order of preference. At the same time, voters in Portland and voters across the state will also be able to say whether they would like to use the same system for statewide and federal offices. And so that is one of the decisions they will have. I will say for Portland, they are also moving to geographic districts, so it will be slightly different than what we are proposing at the statewide level. The city council districts are divided into 4 districts, 3 representatives per each of those districts. So if you live in Portland, you can expect to now have local representation depending on where you live in the city.
And then Multnomah County has already passed this, right? So they'll start, when do they start?
So they're implementing it right now, and it will first be used in 2026, so very soon after this 2024 election.
So for this ballot measure, there's not a number yet or a name for the measure. Blair, when can we expect that?
Well, we're waiting for the Oregon Supreme Court to let us know, and that should happen any day now.
But to be clear, this is a done deal. It is going to be on the ballot. There's not any question about that, right?
Yes, thank you for clarifying. There's no question that the measure will be on the ballot. It's just the ballot title. And so that's what we're waiting for clarification for from the Supreme Court, which will come any day. As soon as we have the title, then the Secretary of State will assign a measure number, and then we're off to the races.
So be watching for that in November. So Blair, 30 seconds for you for a final thought for our viewers tonight.
A simple way to improve our elections. That's what ranked choice voting is. It's used all over the world. It's used in a number of places in the United States. Voters like it. They prefer it to our current system. More choices, more meaningful choices, gives power back to the voters where it belongs.
And Sol, you can finish it up for us, 30 seconds.
You know, I think the thing I'll close out on is we all feel frustrated in one way or the other when it comes to the current state of politics and elections, and we know that we need to move towards a better system, and ranked choice voting can be that solution, so that regardless of who you are, regardless of what political party affiliation you have or what your background is, this is creating more reflective representation for all of us.
Sol Mora, Blair Bobier, thank you so much for joining us here on Straight Talk. I'm sure we'll be hearing more.
All right. So welcome back. Hopefully everyone could hear that okay and enjoyed the presentation. I think, can you hear me all right? Amy? Thank you.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, I thought Blair and Sol did a really good job of providing an overview. This is something that the Pacific Green Party has endorsed. If you go to the RCV website, our logo is on there already, which is pretty cool as one of the supporting organizations. And hopefully that video sort of empowers you all to have more well-informed conversations with your friends about ranked choice voting if it were to come up. I know we're a little past where we're supposed to be in the agenda, but I think I would like to open it up and give people opportunity to either make a comment or a question. I'm not sure if Blair's on with us. I know that he may have, I know he RSVP'd, but I'm not sure if he's online. So he may not be available to answer any questions, but if anyone would like to make a comment or a question, please use the raise your hand feature at the bottom of the screen. If you go to reactions, there's a place where you can click raise hand.
It might be under more for some people.
It's possible.
Zoom can be a little odd. So if you don't see it under reactions, check the 3 dots where it says more. If you'd like to raise your hand.
I see
I'm just-
Josiah. Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead,
I'm
Josiah.
just testing the system, and that is indeed the case for me. That raise your hand is under more, and I think pretty generally all Greens support this sort of thing because that's the only chance we have. So I'll just put in my 2 cents that yeah, I've been a big fan for years.
Great. I see Mike's hands up. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I'm disappointed that it it looks like there's what if this passes, it will not apply to legislative races in Oregon, and I wonder if that was part of the deal that they had to do because legislators were scared of having to deal with in their own races where they might feel they have a lock on their district because of because of the bias of the parties. But I don't know if that was the case or if it's actually, as Blair explained, it's a matter of allowing the county clerks more time, but they're already allowing them 4 years to get used to this. So it doesn't seem that there's more than that is necessary. Yeah, it's just a thought about it, but I'm still happy that it's on the ballot. We're going to campaign for it. I live in Corvallis, and of course we've used it in county commissioner and the mayor and city council elections, and it was, as Blair mentioned, it was decisive in the election of our mayor and in one city council race.
Yeah, thanks. That is an interesting wrinkle that they didn't include the legislative races in there. Anybody else? I thought I saw one other hand up. Maybe they lowered it. All right. Well, that might help us just kind of get back on schedule. So that was a really good overview, I thought. Thank you for being patient and listening to that long thing. And if you're interested, I will also include that in our follow-up email. A link to that if you want to share with anyone. All right. Next up is an overview of the open races, and I think if Seth's online, I think he agreed to sort of help us review what races are still open.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, I can hear you great.
Yeah. So for this convention, what we're able to nominate for as a partisan nominations as a partisan party qualified for the ballot is all the state legislative races, all the state level partisan races. So that's Attorney General, Treasurer, Secretary of State, where we already have a candidate. So that's technically not open. And there are a handful of county level partisan races. Oregon has home rule charter allowed, and while there are about 9 counties that have home rule charters, 2 of them have chosen to use partisan races for their county commission, and that's Benton and Jackson counties. And so we can nominate for those seats if they haven't already been nominated. And there are other elections that are going on at the local level, nonpartisan, but they would be endorsed by local chapters. So there is Portland and Benton County both have local ranked choice voting elections that haven't had their primaries yet. So we wouldn't be able to join any that were already part of a partisan or a nonpartisan primary in the May election, but because Portland and Benton County now have ranked choice voting, they have general election processes. So those would be handled by a local chapter. Any special district elections would be in an odd numbered year, and virtually all other nonpartisan local elections use a kind of first round primary in May of even number years. That's already happened. So that's the quick summary.
Thank you. How about we do just a quick Q&A for anyone who has any questions on this, and then we can move on to updates from our local candidates. I guess, oh, Marnie's got her hand up. Go ahead, Marnie.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for the explanation. So I'm a candidate in a local nonpartisan race. So my question is this practice that you're describing something in our state party's rules?
So yeah, our state party bylaws require local chapters to do local endorsements. So they keep it out of the state level conventions.
Okay, well, thank you for explaining that. Just for FYI, Working Families Party statewide is going to make endorsements in local races as well as the Progressive Party. So just I was confused. I thought our party would work that way, but I guess not.
Right.
Yeah, as part of our decentralized, you know, position as a party, we try to let the locals decide on local races, the nonpartisan ones especially. All righty. All right. Yeah, so let's, Amy, I'll let you take it back over to maybe introduce us to the local candidates.
All right, let me do my toggling here. I will go ahead and ask the candidates in the order, one moment. In the order that I have them listed on my copy of the agenda. So James, if you are here, would you like to go first? You have 5 minutes.
Excellent.
Thanks.
Very good. Okay, so hi. Can everybody hear me?
Yep,
Excellent.
we hear you great.
Very good. Okay, hi. So my name is James Dashiell, and I'm running for Benton County Commissioner, position 3 against Nancy Wise. And it's been a good, busy week for me, and a good month. I'm excited to be here at the convention with you guys, and it's nice to meet you all that I haven't met before, and good to see some familiar faces. So just wanted to let you know just a little status update on the campaign. Everything's going pretty well. I registered this week with Orstar for campaign finance reporting, and got to meet with some citizens who are concerned about local issues, most likely the Coffin Butte landfill expansion that's happening with Republic Services in Benton County. As well, I was lucky enough to have a newspaper reporter do an interview with me over the past week, and that was published just the other day in the Corvallis Gazette-Times Albany Democrat Herald, written by Alex Powers, and he highlighted some of my kind of issues, plus the fact that I'm planning to emphasize grassroots democracy and public engagement with my campaign. And I thought it was a pretty favorable article, so I was happy about that. And Mike, thank you so much for contributing to that as well. I appreciate that. Yeah, so one of the big touchstones is the landfill expansion, as well as Benton County's solid waste initiative that they're looking to reduce solid waste coming up in the next couple of years as mandated by DEQ. So that's a big issue for me that I'm trying to wrap my head around. And as a result, I attended the Corvallis City Council the other day. They were meeting for composting recommendations for their organic solid waste reduction program. And it was very informative. And it looked like they were getting some traction on this, which is good. We'll see what kind of implementations they recommend, but there were a few counselors who were definitely into making it either a subsidized engagement with large food producers, or a required composting initiative, which I think is great. So hopefully Corvallis will sort of take the lead, and we'll start to really reduce our organic solid waste in Benton County. As well, in the past few weeks, I attended meetings from people who are concerned about the landfill, judging from past experience, a lady named Marge Pop and another lady named Nancy Wickham, and both have expressed a desire to help with the campaign. So I think that's really, really good. And yeah, so that's about it. I'm still learning a lot. I'm sort of a newcomer to politics, but I'm definitely enjoying the engagement with the public in the county and learning as much as I can about these issues. So.
All right, Amy, who's next? Thank you very much, James. We'll do open it up for comments and questions after all of the local candidates speak.
Super.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'll go ahead.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, James. Mike, I believe you're next.
All right. Boy, Amy, your image is strange.
I will turn it off again. This computer itself is old enough to vote. Yeah. I think that's the issue.
Anyway, I'm running for the legislature in District 16, which is the district that Dan Rayfield represents now. And since he's running for Attorney General, it's an open seat. There is a Democrat running in the election. Her name is Sarah Finger McDonald, and me. There's no Republican in the race. Nobody ran in the primary, so it'll be interesting as a race with just a Green and a Democrat. I have probably a broader reputation in the district than my opponent, because I was on the Corvallis City Council for 12 years, and I've been politically active as a Green for 25 years now. So I think it'll be an interesting race. I found that in general there's a bias that people just tend to vote for their party, and so with a large number of Democrats have dominated the county and the area, so I think I'll challenge that as best I can, but I think that domination is hard to overcome. I'm petitioning to have my candidate statement in the voters pamphlet at no cost. To do that, I need 200 signatures of registered voters, and I just started, and I have about 50 signatures so far. We have a big event tomorrow, which both James Daischel and I are going to be able to meet a lot of voters in the district. This is Corvallis Open Streets, so it looks good. My campaign statement that I issued, and some of you might have read it already, because I had to submit this for the voters pamphlet in order to start the petitioning, concentrates on the issue of natural gas and eliminating natural gas, or the burning of methane as a major fossil fuel contributing to global warming. And so I concentrate on that. I think it's campaign literature I intend to produce and distribute will mention that, but also concentrate on other green issues. And so I've made up a flyer, which I'll start using tomorrow in our event. And it's not very well designed or anything, but it's, I just wanted to get something together quickly. But in this, I just mentioned that this says the Green Party represents a real climate solution, a post-carbon economy, and end to burning of fossil fuels, reducing violence, sensible gun control, and prison and police reform, secure futures, universal health care, and tuition-free education, economic security, fair tax fairness, public banking, public housing, real democracy, public financing, campaign finance reform, and of course, ranked choice voting, and supporting workers, living wages, and the right to organize. So this is the kind of the basic message that I intend to use in the campaign, although like I say, I've only printed up about 40 flyers with that, and I'll maybe have a better message and maybe a better designed flyer later in the campaign. So I'll be looking for suggestions from our local chapter on how to improve that. So that's the status of the campaign. I think we're very lucky, to have James Dayshall as a candidate, as relatively new to the Green Party, but he's had a very effective campaign so far. So voters in Corvallis will have 2 Greens on the ballot, well, 3, counting Jill Stein and then the statewide candidates. So there'll be a lot of Greens appearing on the ballot, and that's been a major goal of mine as running as a candidate. I basically every 2 years I'll run for some office just so that the Greens appear on the ballot. Even though running for county commissioner or for the U.S. Congress, there was really not much chance of winning. I think that's changing now with James' campaign, that he could actually win this. So thank you. Anyway, I appreciate the support of the Green Party, and I will continue to support the Green Party as well.
Thank you, Mike. I believe Andrew, are we gonna give people a minute if they want to ask questions?
Well, let's go to Andrea, and then we will, let's give, Marnie would like a few minutes. I see Marnie's got her hand up. We're gonna give you a few minutes, Marnie, even though it's a local race. So yeah, let's let Andrea speak, and then Marnie, and then we'll open it up for comments.
Okay. Andrea, are you able to unmute? Go right ahead.
Yes, I am. Thank you. My name is actually pronounced Andrea Kennedy Smith. That's okay. So I'm running as an independent candidate in Senate District 12, which is Yamhill and rural Polk counties. I just received the Independent Party of Oregon nomination on Friday, which is what gets me on the ballot in November. That was a very long process that was really unknown. It was, they wouldn't really tell us what the process was for their nomination convention, and they didn't allow anyone to attend other than the people that sit on the independent party. And so I'm just glad that part is over, because it was not transparent, and it was kind of like things were just up in the air waiting. And so it was hard to really plan moving forward without that nomination, because that's what gets me on the ballot. But now I have that. And so there is a Democrat running in the race, Scott Hooper. He's an out-of-state attorney. He's been in Oregon a few years and doesn't have any involvement or knowledge really about our structures in Oregon. And then Bruce Starr is the Republican candidate who was in the legislature back in, I think, 2014. And we definitely don't want him back. So right now, I have, moving forward, I'm interviewing different teams that I can work with the support of my union, SEIU Local 503, because we haven't really supported, our union hasn't really worked with or supported independent candidates. Typically, our union is supportive and endorses a lot of Democrats. And so we're trying to, I think, open doors for many of our members that do not fit into the two-party structure. A lot of us, stick to our labor values, which is where, I will continue moving forward our labor priorities for working families. I've been doing a lot of public engagement, speaking with people in our community. I've done a lot of phone calls, like cold calls out to community members, just trying to let people know that I'm running. And I'm planning on attending many of our events that we have in the community. We have farmers markets every Thursday. I'm planning on getting a table and setting up there. And then we have a lot of community events that are planned. And I'm planning on just trying to engage with the public as much as possible and inform them. that I'm running, and really prioritizing, like I have been for like the last 17 years, education, which Oregon is just failing our children year after year after year. I have two children, young children, one in elementary school and one in middle school here in McMinnville. And both of my younger children have autism. And so trying to navigate the education system in Oregon has been very challenging when you have children with special needs that are being left behind, which is unfortunately happening with a lot of our children in Oregon. I speak to a lot of other parents that have children with special needs. And a lot of us, unfortunately, are trying to do the best we can, but it's very challenging. So I'm excited to be working with the Green Party. I'm excited to give Oregonians a different choice outside of the two-party system that is not working for us. I know a lot of you read my literature already about me, but really I am a working mom. I'm a public servant, and I'm looking forward to continuing to serve Oregonians in the legislature. So I look forward to having more conversations with all of you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, Andrea. Since Marnie is joining us, and I believe that unfortunately Kevin didn't make it, although I suppose he might still show up. Marnie, would you like to go ahead and speak?
I think she's still muted.
Oh, I hit, let's see.
May I speak now?
Yes.
Hi, Mary, I see you. Welcome. Hello, everyone. I am Marnie Glickman. I'm running for Portland City Council. And although I understand the parameters the party set, I am here to motivate all of you to care about this race. I am running in District 2, which is all of North Portland and most of Northeast Portland. I was the first candidate in this race to qualify for Portland Small Donor Elections funding. I've raised about $66,000 so far, and the budget's $175,000. Okay, why you should care even if you're not living in Portland. A couple more things. So I'm running because we need progressive, experienced leadership in City Hall. I'm running because my leadership is grounded in community and rooted in good government, empowered by our green values. And I need your help. I can be the first Green ever elected to the Portland City Council. We can do it, but we can only do it if people, not just in Portland, but all of you outside Portland, and I have Greens all over the country supporting me. And I want to make this really an exciting time because I have hope that we can revitalize Portland. And so I'm going to save my time because I'd like to, hear from you about what you would need to get involved in this race. I've been a Green for 24 years. I was co-chair of the National Green Party, and it's time to think beyond our jurisdictional lines, in my opinion, because we are in a global crisis and we all have to come together. Not just Greens, independent party folks, progressive party folks, Democrats, so we can actually make the changes we need. So that's my emotional plea to all of you, and hope to get your support. I've gotten the support of other political leaders, and I would love to have all of your support too. And special shout out to Seth and Natalie, who have been very, very helpful.
Thank you, Marnie. So it looks like Kevin didn't make it. He does have a very nice looking campaign site though, so I added it to the chat. Justin, I feel like we're hewing pretty well to the schedule.
Oh, this is amazing. We're, I think, right on schedules. But for these four candidates that are here with us today, let's give folks an opportunity to ask them some questions or maybe make a comment. Um, Again, please raise your hand and we will call on you.
Are people still having trouble finding the dang raised hand thing? If you're wondering why it's not under reactions, it's for some reason, for some of us, it's under the more with the three dots. So if you do want to raise your hand, ask a question, please go ahead.
All right, I think we've got Mike and then Natalie, and we'll try to keep comments or questions to 2 minutes, please.
Great.
I think Natalie was up first, but I'll just go ahead since you called on me. But I'd like to ask Marnie, could we get some information about her opponents? Who else has filed for that position?
Sure, I'll answer that. I have 26 opponents so far. The filing deadline is next month. But I want to be really clear. I was the first one to qualify for small donor elections. I'm getting endorsements from really good endorsements from sitting Democratic elected officials. I was endorsed by the Portland Teachers Union, the laborers. I'm heading off to the Carpenters Union now. I'm getting support from people of all races, genders, generations, and so I am a leader in this race, but it ultimately is going to come down to how much money we can raise and how many people will come to Portland and help us knock on doors.
I guess since I'm up, I heard that there was a problem with the distribution of these small donor matching funds, that the current city council had not actually allocated
That's
that money.
That's not correct.
Okay.
So the way it works in 45 seconds is I had the matching funds are distributed in 3 batches. I earned the first batch, which was $40,000 in matching funds. In order to get the second 40,000, I need to have 750 Portland donors. I have 509 Portland donors. So I'm out collecting $5 donations, like 10 a day. And that means I just have to say, if any of you know one person in Portland, please, please help me get there first. So the money is there. But people are cynical, right? Or, worried about other things. And so we have amazing candidates and we need people to give all our candidates at least $5.
Thank you, Marty. Natalie, did you have a question?
Yes, hi Marnie, thank you very much for joining the convention. I wanted to ask whether you were collaborating with specific candidates in your district, if there were any, people that you're working closely with.
Oh, that's a great question. In District 2, there is only 1 or 2 candidates that I believe share our green political values. We are in the same spaces, but I'm so far like the strongest candidate that they don't help. They don't have much help to give me. That said, I am collaborating with strong leftist candidates in other districts. So in your district, Natalie, I'm collaborating with Angelita Murillo and Tiffany Kokoyama Lane, who are endorsed by DSA. They're really great partners. And then in District 1, I collaborate with there's a lot of good candidates in District 1 in the outer east side. So so the answer is yes, but not in District 2. And I think a part of it is because they just don't have any help. They want my help and not, they don't have help to exchange. Just being honest.
Yeah, and what I wanted to do is, if you all know people in Portland, just make that personal appeal that it doesn't need to be a large donation. It's just an endorsement, and your friends in Portland are important for this.
Yes, it's just $5. Like literally, I'm going out. I was at a restaurant yesterday with some acquaintances and I was like, would you buy me a beer? And they're like, sure. I'm like, no, just kidding. Will you give me $5 for the campaign? And giving money to the campaign, people are so cynical about giving donations that I have to like talk like that, right? Like, what would it take for all of you who have not given to donate $5? Because I know you would buy me a latte. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Natalie. Thanks, Marnie. Do we have any other questions for any candidate?
I've got my hand up.
Great.
I guess along the same lines of Natalie's questions, I just wanted to ask, since James is running and Mike, maybe they both can speak to this, in an area where ranked choice voting exists. Well, I guess maybe it doesn't apply to Mike's race. Maybe he could clarify. But is there, how are you framing that within your campaign? Are you trying to position yourself as the best choice and maybe the Democrat? No, this is directed to James and Mike and Ben.
Okay, you're not interested in my position on that? Gotcha.
No, that's not it. I just thought you just addressed it. So no, it's just the same question that Natalie posed to you. I just posing the same question to them, basically.
Well, I just want to say, because that wasn't the question Natalie asked. I am putting on all of my signs and vote Marnie #1.
Thank you.
Yeah,
all right.
And my specific thing, I haven't brought up the option of ranked choice too much with the people that I've talked to so far. It's just been support me in my election campaign, but definitely I appreciate that input, and I will be, I enjoy Marnie's thing where it's #1, please. Would be good. First choice. Yeah.
I'd like to comment that in James' race, there is a Democrat and a Republican running. Normally the Republicans running for county commissioner in Benton County are sacrificial candidates because they can't win. However, this race is a bit different because the Democrat who he's running against is very much associated with expansion of the landfill, which is unpopular. And so she's gotten a lot of criticism from Democrats because of that already. And the Republican is anti-landfill, so he's gaining support that a Republican normally wouldn't have in the county. And so it really creates normally the county commissioner would get over 50% of the vote. And I ran in the first ranked choice election for county commissioner, and I got 10%, and the Democrat got over 50%. So the ranked choice didn't really come into that, even though it was a ranked choice election. But in James' current election, I think this is, the ranked choice will make a difference because it's very likely the Democrat cannot get 50%. There's another county commissioner race which we were not able to recruit a candidate for, in which there is only one candidate running, a Democrat, but he's a Democrat. It's a Democrat. He was a member of the Corvallis City Council who introduced ranked choice voting for the city council elections in Corvallis, and so he's someone that's generally is friendly to the Greens, and we did not have a strong appetite to run against him, even though he's running unopposed. And so that's, I guess, I would still, as much as I like him, I still would have liked to have a Green running in that race as well, but we couldn't recruit anyone.
I appreciate it, Mike. We just, Natalie sent me Marnie's link to her website, so we posted that in the chat. And I just want to remind folks that we do need money to do all the things that we do. And I'll be quite frank, our balance is getting low, folks. So if you can spare a few dimes, please donate to the Pacific Green Party so we can continue doing this. We've got to pay for like registration fees to the national convention. There's just ongoing expenses related to subscriptions that we pay for, the website, et cetera, et cetera. So if you can spare a few dimes, we would appreciate it. And then Amy, I'll hand it back to you.
All right, we seem to be on schedule, which is good. If I can just get Firefox to cooperate with me. We carved out 12:10 to 12:30 for Q&A. Do we want to take the break a little early? Is there something else folks would want to discuss? Oh, and Justin, if you have the fundraising link available for the PGP, maybe go ahead and place it in chat.
Yes, it should be there for everyone to see now.
Oh, excellent. Thank you.
And I also want to just say this. Thank you, Marnie, for sharing the link to your website. And James, we'll try to, in our follow-up email to this convention, I'll include links to everyone's websites so you can go and check them out and have everything in one place that's handy for you. We definitely want to make sure that you know who our candidates are. And thank you all for running. I appreciate it. And sorry for mispronouncing Andrea's name. But yes, we have a few more minutes before I go on break. We could always go on break a little bit early, but I think our statewide candidates are planning on speaking at 12:45, so we'll try to stay true to our word and restart at 12:45. But if anyone has any questions for any of the candidates or any comments, we've got about 10 minutes.
Not a question. I'll just point out for those who might not know, my memory isn't always all it should be either. For every delegate that attends the national convention to participate in the presidential nomination, the national is asking for $125 per person, and that might be prohibitive for some people. Although they will allow you to ask for a hardship exemption all the way through August 11th. But obviously, for reasons like that, if you can donate to the PGP directly, that would be terrific. Because obviously we don't want politics to be a rich person's game, and we want to be able to support our delegates, our candidates, our operating system, everything as best we can. Thanks.
Yeah, Amy, just as a side note, I put in for the national deferment on the expenses there, but also that if they didn't cover it, that it would be covered by locally.
Thanks, Bob.
Yes, I agree. We don't want participation and representing the party to be cost prohibitive for anyone. So I appreciate that. Our delegates that can qualify for waivers are requesting that, but we're going to try to help folks fill in the gaps if we need to. All right, Amy, I think we can maybe call a break. Maybe we can unmute everybody. If folks want to have a conversation during the break, you're more than welcome to, and we will reconvene at 12:45 with our statewide candidates. I think we're expecting to hear from two treasurer hopefuls, a couple candidates that are hoping to get our nomination for the statewide treasurer race.
I apologize for my inexperience with Zoom, but it's only telling me that I have the option to mute all. Are people able to unmute themselves if they'd like to chat with each other?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Please go ahead and do so. I think it's great how well we're moving along. And Justin, remind me what time we're returning. Looks like 12:45 we're returning. Is that correct?
Oh, sorry, I was muted. Yes, we'll pick it up again at 12:45 is what I was trying to say.
All right, thanks, folks. Please enjoy chatting or taking a break or whatever you need to do, and we will see you again at 12:45.
Marnie, I loved your remarks. This is Thomas. We met at one of your events. I've known Emery for a while.
Oh, Thomas. Hi. How are you?
Hello. Happy to be one of your donors. I'm doing good. You
Oh my
know,
gosh, sorry I did not. What brings you here to this convention?
nominations.
Yeah,
Yeah, for statewide.
cool. Yeah, thank you for connecting your name to your face. Yeah, Emery's gonna pick me up where the unions have in District 2 have been really random in who who they're interviewing. So I got interview with the carpenters this afternoon.
Very nice. One of the more progressive unions.
What else do you know about them? Maybe that's why I don't.
Um, yeah, I think that as far as like trades unions go, they're one of the more progressive ones, along with like the iron workers. I want to say. I used to know someone who was there as one of their political team, but I don't anymore. I think what's interesting, they represent a larger region than just Portland.
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't really know why they're progressive, but they just are. So
Well, that's interesting. Yeah, they must. Yeah, but that said, I also got a random interview with the Teamsters,
that's awesome.
but that's next week.
Um,
Yes, it's very random. Some are even like not even. I would say I don't even have the list. I'd say like 20% of them wouldn't even let me interview, and then like half of them are, and then it's just random.
yeah, it's really hard to chase labor endorsements. Like I'll have like my labor list of like 80 different people across Oregon that I'll be emailing and send them an email like once every couple weeks, once every month, trying not to bother them too much, but keep reminding them.
Yeah.
And they sometimes they just really like to be courted and chased, which
Yeah.
is
Well,
on the campaign side.
we were trying to keep our calm spirits going in campaign world. So far, so
Mhm.
good.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what you got to do. And labor, you never get all of them, but you just need to get enough to show that you have those, bona fides. And it sounds like you're getting them. So
Yes, I'm getting enough of them. I'm waiting for Working Families Party. I think they decided, but they didn't tell anyone yet.
They had their nominating convention, but the board still has to approve the nominations that they voted on.
But they had not. They did announce their decisions for District 1, but not 2, 3, and 4.
My understanding is that yeah, there's going to be there'll be an announcement, and then there'll be like another round of nominations later, and closer to the filing deadline, because like they didn't like in the convention they didn't consider, for example, like the mayor. So they're going to do like the board is going to meet for another round, is my understanding.
But do you know if they decided in District 2 yet?
I don't know.
Do you, Andrea?
I was told that they did their vote at the convention that they just had, but that I have to wait for the board to approve of the vote that they just took, and then they would be making the announcements. That's what Annie said. So the director. So because yes, I'm waiting on that as well. Did
Yeah.
you, Marnie, did you reach out to SEIU for
Oh
endorsement?
yeah. I thank you for asking. I was listening to you. Yeah, it was so fun. I guess so in Portland, I guess this is an annual thing. They had the first round, they had us all at a hotel, like 80 local candidates and maybe 100 SEIU members. And we were all organized into different groups and we played Jenga.
Yeah, I was there, and
I was there
James that's
too.
on the call was also there because he's part of our union also. But yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't get to
Yeah,
meet you.
that
Yeah,
was
there were a
yeah,
lot of people. It was a
you were
lot of
there.
fun, and
Yeah,
yeah,
so
I wish The only thing I wish is that it went a little longer because that was like, I think the best event
It
of
was
a
pretty
lot
fun.
of events.
So the second round we just finished, which was a short written questionnaire and a 5-minute video with complete Spanish translations. And then my campaign manager, Emery, is proficient in Spanish. So that was the second round. And then, you know, I'm optimistic I'll make it to the third round of interviews, but because it's so important, SEIU.
Yeah, our union has kind of a weird process. You know, I'm pretty new to CAPE and I'm still pretty new to our union. And I keep trying to figure out where are the levers and just keep going up and up and up until I eventually will find a lever that says, where can I say no to genocide? But so far we haven't quite found that lever.
Mm.
And
I think,
it is definitely, I have a lot of feedback and I'm sure I'm working with members on that. But I think the Jenga game itself is probably the most, to me, it's the best way for us to get in touch with the candidates, because everybody who runs for office knows how to write speeches. You know how to fill out a questionnaire. If you're willing to fill out the questionnaire, you're probably not, you're going to know, people are going to know what lies are the right lie to tell us or whatever else. And it's like, that to me, that's not as important as the direct engagement.
Yeah, I would play Jenga again.
yeah, I want to do it again, James, but like halfway through, maybe like change tables or something. But I thought it was great because you were able to like talk to people, but also like, you know, play the game at the same time. I just would have liked to move around and maybe play the game with some others or maybe a
Yeah.
different game. But I loved that. I'm glad. I don't, is that the first time or do we typically do that?
That's the second time I've done that this cycle.
And I apologize, my Zoom is being peculiar again. Sometimes it shows me when people come in, but then doesn't allow me to admit them. So just keep an eye on that if you can. I apologize. And then just let me know who we'd like to have speak first, and I'll set my timer.
Why don't we go with Elizabeth Steiner first, candidate for treasurer?
Fabulous.
Thank you so much. And thank you all for taking time out of your Saturday to be here. I'm Elizabeth Steiner. I'm a family physician, a mom of 3, and a state senator. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today and compete for your nomination for state treasurer. I first ran for office because I believe Oregon can be the healthiest state in the nation. I still believe that's true, and that's exactly why I'm running for state treasurer. I've served in the Senate for almost 13 years. As co-chair of the Ways and Means Committee for the last 6, I've been one of the lead budget writers in the state. I've led the effort to invest in services we all depend on, such as the Oregon Health Plan and public education, and in our future through initiatives such as solar incentives, while growing our reserves while not overspending. Some of my proudest achievements in the legislature have been focused on ensuring improved health for Oregon families. This includes raising the minimum age to purchase tobacco to 21, creating a home visiting program for all families welcoming new babies, and requiring employers to share information about the Earned Income Tax Credit so more working families get this benefit. And just last year, I helped add a financial literacy curriculum to our high schools. The Oregon Treasurer's Office manages $130 billion in assets, not a trivial sum of money. Serving as your treasurer would be a continuation of my legislative responsibilities and skills, including managing large sums of money, holding state agencies accountable, and finding new ways to keep Oregonians healthier and more financially secure. As a physician, I've seen firsthand how financial security makes Oregonians healthier. Having even $500 in savings significantly reduces financial stress and can be the difference between someone keeping their home or experiencing homelessness. The treasurer's office should not be a partisan office. It is, but it's also important for me to know, that you know what my values are and what drives me. I became a physician to help people lead healthy lives. The climate crisis threatens everything we hold dear: our air, our water, our health, our livelihoods, and I believe we must do everything we can to reverse our current course, which is why I'm committed to the net zero plan for Oregon's investments. Additionally, I assure you that as a statewide official, I will continue to stand up publicly in support of reproductive freedom, gun safety, and other core values that I have demonstrated over many years of public service. One of the Treasurer's key responsibilities is to protect the retirement funds of those who have served our great state. I believe there are certain changes we can make to reduce the unfunded liability of our pension fund and ensure Oregon meets its pension obligations to state employees while ensuring our investments are in line with our environmental goals. For example, as I said, I'm committed to achieving net zero carbon emissions in the public retirement fund portfolio by 2050, cutting them in half by 2035, and implementing a bill I co-chief sponsored, the Coal Act, from the 2024 session, to divest Treasury from thermal coal. It's important that we strike a balance between protecting retirement funds and doing more to combat the climate crisis. Additionally, the Treasurer manages the College Savings Program, which is one of the best tools Oregonians have to save for their children's future. Unfortunately, this program is underutilized, especially by those who would benefit from it the most. The Treasurer's office should communicate that these funds can be used for career and technical education or college. Furthermore, even a small amount in such an account increases the likelihood of young people pursuing post-high school education by 300%. I will make enrolling more Oregon kids in the College Savings Plan one of my top priorities as Treasurer. I'm excited about the challenges and solutions that lie ahead of Oregon right now. I promise you that as your next Treasurer, I will help build a financially stronger, climate-savvy, healthier Oregon. I would be honored to accept the Pacific Green Party's nomination and look forward to any questions you may have.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Elizabeth. Do we have questions?
I think let's hear from all of the candidates and then we'll open it up for questions.
Okay, I'm sorry. I forgot what order we were going in. Who do we have up next?
I believe we have Mary King from the Working Families Party.
Okay, Mary, I see you. Please go ahead. You have 5 minutes.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for including me in the Pacific Green Party Nominating Convention. I've been nominated for state treasurer by the Oregon Working Families Party. It would be a big boost to have your support as well. I'm running to create an alternative to business as usual. Oregon can and should be doing far more to slow climate change and protect our communities and environment while creating a more inclusive and prosperous economy for everyone. As a progressive economist, I know well the proven power of public investments to improve life now for the whole community, particularly poor and working class families, and create a better future for our children. As Senator Steiner has mentioned, Oregon is investing currently. We have $130 billion in assets under management. The treasurer leads the Oregon Investment Council, and I strongly advocate moving faster out of fossil fuels, weapons, private equity, which currently has 55 to 60% of our PERS fund and private equity is well known for destructive, predatory environment. It's a job killer, it's a business killer, and we need to do better. And investing instead into projects like a state bank that can create good union jobs for women and men in Oregon's multiracial working class. I support more bonding and raising taxes on the wealthy to fully fund housing, healthcare, childcare, and education from preschool through college. Now, clearly that is not clearly under the treasurer's purview. You need to be working with the legislature. I've learned the power of relationships, organizing, and people-powered campaigns in 2 big life experiences. One was representing PSU's full-time faculty, librarians, and student advisors as president and chief negotiator for our union. We authorized the first strike in our 35-year history and made big gains, due in large part to great support from students, other unions, and community organizations. The second was intense involvement over 3 years in the push for free, year-round, full-time preschool in Multnomah County, with lots of choices for families, better pay for all teachers, paid for by the 5%. We won 2-1, driven by an undeniable coalition of educators, unions, culturally specific organizations, and other community groups. It's a model for the state. It's a model for the nation going forward. Our state treasurer should be playing a big role in guiding the financing of the future we want here in Oregon through our investment portfolio, through helping coordinate collaborative green economic development projects throughout the state with a state bank, by raising the revenue we need for education, childcare, healthcare, and publicly owned, permanently affordable housing, and by promoting a just transition in our state forests. Not everybody realizes that the state treasurer has an important role in policy for the state forests, along with the Secretary of State and the governor. We should be moving to substitute the income many of our state forests are required to bring in to contribute to the schools toward carbon credits. We can let those trees grow and create a little more oxygen for everybody. Now, you can see more specifics in my questionnaire, and I'm happy to answer questions now or by email. And I'd also love to hear your ideas for creating a better future in our state. I'll just quickly say, I think we need to do more, as much as we possibly can, while we cannot count on the federal government for so many of these things that we might wish and hope were happening at the federal level. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mary. All right. I think that's it. Unless I'm missing someone, please let me know in the chat. We've got 2 candidates for treasurer. Green Party members will be receiving a ballot later today, hopefully, if we can get all of our tech folks to help out with the ballot. You should receive that today. We'll include links to both candidates' websites and probably some pieces from the questionnaire that they filled out. But let's open it up for questions and comments. Please raise your hand if you'd like to speak. All right. Let's go with Max and then Mike.
Hello, thank you. I heard someone mention the need to not wait on the nation for certain things that we can do on a state level. I was wondering very specifically if what both candidates' view was towards the movement of boycott, divestment, and sanction in regards to solidarity with Palestinians, and just in general, what you would see the role of treasurer as being with relation to global human rights.
Feel free, Mary.
Sure. I support the boycott, divest, and sanction movement personally myself. I also support divestment for the portfolio from, arms manufacturing and that kind of thing. I think we have to also allow ourselves scope for divestment from countries and companies that are participating in violations of international law and human rights. I think it's important to use the power that we have to create a better world.
I appreciate the perspective that Mary offered, and I take a slightly different one. Do I support human rights abuses anywhere? Absolutely not. Do I think that there is a significant role for large institutional investors like the state of Oregon to use our power to help influence those conversations? I absolutely do. The problem is the boycott, divestiture, and sanction movement has primarily focused on Israel. While we know that many other countries, we can think about Myanmar, we can think about Russia, we can think about China, have also perpetrated significant human rights abuses against minority populations, and even the majority citizens living in their countries, to silence dissent or homogenize society. And yet we have not seen those calls for BDS movements against those countries. So, and additionally, I would say I do not support war anywhere. And yet we run into problems if we start to talk about divesting from certain sectors, whether that's arms or anything else, because then the question becomes, well, do we divest from arms? Do we divest from tobacco companies? Do we divest from pharmaceutical manufacturers because they do price gouging? And I'm not trying to be sarcastic in the slightest. I'm trying to lay out some of the challenges that we face as we think about a very large portfolio that has to be divested broadly. So do I think there is a role for us to use our power as a large institutional investor to express our concerns? 100%. Am I more than willing to speak out about those things? 100%. Am I committed to divesting automatically from arms manufacturers or certain countries? I'm not sure I can go there yet because I'm not sure that I can meet the fiduciary responsibility that the treasurer has and do that simultaneously. And there is a federal definition of fiduciary for a large pension fund that the treasurer is obligated to meet first. So I know that's not the answer you probably wanted to hear, but it's the answer that I can give that's the most accurate based on my understanding of the situation.
Thank you both.
Thanks for the question, Max. And I think going forward, in the interest of fairness, maybe we'll just take turns on who goes first. So for Mike's question, if Elizabeth could respond first, and then we'll go to Mary, and we'll just keep taking turns. How about that? All right. Mike, go ahead.
Thanks. In the 2023 legislature passed a public banking bill that would have established a study to, or would have created a study that would then report to the legislature on establishing a public bank. And it was passed by both houses and vetoed by the governor. And do you have any comments on public banking? And, and I think that, of course, the state treasurer, has, a lot of say on how public banking could or would be implemented in Oregon. So what do you have to say about it?
I'm glad you asked that question. As co-chair of the budget committee at the time, I'm one of the people who helped authorize the funding for that task force and move that bill forward out of Ways and Means into the Senate floor. And I voted for it out of Ways and Means, and I voted for it on the Senate floor. I think it's important that we investigate thoroughly the challenges that are facing Oregon from a banking perspective, and understand really clearly what issues we have that can best be served by having a public bank. And that task force would have done that, which is why I was supportive of having the task force. Do I have a definitive answer about whether this is the right way to proceed? No, that's why I thought we needed the task force. And I'm very open to similar efforts in the future to really outline the pros and cons to the state of moving forward with a state bank.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Mary.
I thought that was a really well-crafted bill to create that task force. I thought it was smart to be identifying all the possible kinds of issues that should be thought through, from banking for the marijuana industry to student loans and that kind of financing. If we ever want to talk about student debt, I worked with the Working Families Party on another proposal for how we could do that, but we could talk about that later. And I thought it was smart to start with a task force in order to develop a really broadly supported bill that would address the issues that we know are going to arise from the banking community, as they did when the Working Families Party strongly supported an earlier proposal almost 10 years ago now. And I think that we have a strong model in the Bank of North Dakota, working closely with community banks. So there's partnerships on projects that make sense in different regional areas. And I think it also affords the state itself the opportunity to collaborate on economic development proposals that might have public money invested, private money invested, because once there are both, and then a community bank may as well as the state bank, that we can bring more resources to bear in a more thoughtful and collaborative way, and pull from resources that are in our communities, like can the community colleges be helping thinking about this? Can our universities, like Portland State, where I spent my career, be providing a role, and bring more to bear so that we do smarter economic development with a broader purview of where we're going, and certainly make sure that sustainability and a just transition are part of it.
Thank you, Mary. All right. I have a question, but does anyone else have one? I'd rather send it to the membership first. Anyone else? All right, I'll go.
Oh, I'll just say we are at 1 o'clock, so
Okay, that's all right. We can go a
we
little
should.
over.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah, thank you though. So my question is about fundraising, donations, and campaign finance reform. So I'd just like to hear your thoughts on how you're going about fundraising, what types of donations you're willing to accept or not accept, and your thoughts on campaign finance reform.
I'm up. I'm working primarily with Working Families Party contacts and broadly who are looking to support a more progressive vision for our states and country, with often models in the states, as we need to demonstrate that things work without managing to make progress at the federal level. We're not taking corporate money. We're doing as much as we can, small donations. I'm actually not central to some of this work. I'm, much more working on the policy ends of things. I know we're looking for small donors, and I strongly support campaign finance reform. I wish the legislature would take a stronger position that would get the big money out of politics. We have to do something to, we're stuck right now with that Supreme Court decision that corporations are people and they can give as much money as they like. And somehow we need to figure our way out of that. And now we're in this very uncomfortable limbo where, yes, individuals are limited, but independent expenditure campaigns can just spend as much as we want. We've seen in the primaries what that meant for this state. So I would very much like to see us set a much stronger example. And it's a challenge. It's a challenge when you have a sitting legislature that's able to be where they are because they were able to manage to work with the messed up system that we have. And it's difficult to rock the boat. I can appreciate that when people are looking at, okay, how can I bring all my colleagues along on something that will require that they change how they're doing things? So it's tough. It's very tough. I think we might end up having to have a statewide ballot measure to make something like that happen in the way that we often do to raise the taxes that we need.
Thank you, Mary. Appreciate it. We'll go to Elizabeth.
So let me start by saying that I'm honored to have well over 400 individual contributors with an average contribution of $250. So I really appreciate the fact that I have very broad-based grassroots support, and many of those donors are $50 or below, because I value those just as much as I value the large donations. And that's been true throughout my political career. That being said, I cannot claim that I'm not taking corporate money. I have throughout my career. I've had two limitations since I took office. I don't take money from tobacco companies and I don't take money from pharmaceutical companies. Both of those seem to me to be an inherent conflict of interest for me as a physician. And so I said right from the get-go that I wouldn't take that money, and I never have and I never will, even though I won't be making policy votes as treasurer. I have a track record that shows that when I take corporate donations, that does not guarantee my vote on anything. I have voted against some of my largest donors. One of the best examples of that is that I was one of the chief sponsors of the mergers and acquisitions, healthcare mergers and acquisitions bill in 2021, despite the fact that the Oregon Hospital Association is one of my largest donors. And they despised that bill, and I voted against them. And I did that because it was the right thing to do to protect Oregonians' access to healthcare. I completely agree with Mary that Citizens United was a devastating decision for the well-being of our campaigns in this country. And until that's overturned, we're very limited. I also agree that it'd be great to get big money out of politics. The challenge, as she quite rightly pointed out, is independent expenditures, because we can limit donations as much as we want to individual politicians from individuals or even directly from corporations. But until we figure out a way to limit independent expenditures, we're actually probably in a worse position, because as a candidate, I have no say in what an entity that wants to do an independent expenditure does. And therefore, they can do all the attacks that they want. They can do any of those kinds of things. And I have absolutely no control. They can say anything they want about me, and I have no control about it. And I find that highly problematic. I voted for the campaign finance bill that we passed. I will freely admit that I said on the floor and in committee that I somewhat resented the implication that my vote could be bought, because I truly believe it can't. And as I said, that example I gave you about the M&A bill is not the only one by any means. So from that perspective, and I'm worried that the bill that we passed results in less transparency. It may result in less money coming in directly to candidates, but it also results in less transparency, because right now, if you want to know who's giving me money and who I'm giving money to, there is one place you have to look. I have one PAC, and you can see every single transaction from my entire legislative career in there from 2011 forward. And I'm proud of that track record because it's transparent and it's clear. So do I think we need campaign finance reform? Yes. Do I think that simply limiting what individual candidates can get or what individuals or individual corporations can give is sufficient? No. Do I know what the perfect answer is? No, but we probably can't get there without fixing independent expenditures and fixing Citizens United.
Okay, thank you both. I think we have one more question, at least one more. Natalie?
Yeah, I have one. First of all, thank you very much for attending. It's really very appreciated to hear your positions. And I have one question is, the Green Party supported IP9, which had very strict disclosure measures and disclaimer measures for independent expenditures. And I want to know whether you, Elizabeth Steiner and Mary King, would support taking the disclosure and disclaimer for independent expenditures of IP9 and pushing them to make them law in Oregon.
I have not had the opportunity to read IP9. So what I can say is that what I say about bills all the time, which is until I actually read it, I cannot commit to the supporting the specific approach that's taken in a bill or initiative petition. What I can say is that philosophically, I am 100% supportive of improved disclosure for independent expenditures and much more transparency there, because you know, under the new campaign finance bill, I could have a PAC for support of candidates who like puppies. That's pretty non-transparent. And yet that I could have that, and I don't like that. So until I read IP9 and also until we understood how the Secretary of State would implement rulemaking on it, which is of course what always happens. We pass legislation and then agencies implement rules for the actual implementation of that legislation or those ballot measures. But philosophically, I am 100% aligned on that issue.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Mary?
I would just say that I'm sorry, I'm unfamiliar with IP9, and so I'd want to know what I was talking about before I answered that question. Absolutely, I'm there as well. I will just say, while I have a minute, that I understand fiduciary responsibility to be loyalty to beneficiaries of a program, such as a pension, is how it's described. And I'm one of those beneficiaries, and so therefore are my children and grandchildren. And I would like to see us thinking more thoroughly about what it means to have fiduciary responsibility in management. People interpret it too narrowly as making absolutely as much money as possible, and we have underfunded our pension system, and that we are in the sorry state that we're in by trying to reach unrealistic investment goals that need to be rethought. So sorry for going off program here, but I did want to kind of answer that angle.
Could I ask a clarifying question? Is about the piece of legislation that was asked in the question? Is the question that you would like for non-independent, is the law proposed you would like for non-independent expenditure campaigns to have the same disclosure requirements for reporting? Is that the question?
Natalie, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, IP9 specifically had very strict regulations that would make it mandatory to name the top funders for independent expenditures. And the state Congress, the State House and Senate passed a measure to put campaign finance reform on the to approve a measure that did not include those provisions. Those provisions were actually fought pretty badly by labor and Democratic office holders who received quite a lot of money from labor. That was why the question, and I'm surprised that there's been such a big issue that it was not really tracked or followed more closely, because it totally undermines democracy, and we all know that. Also, I wanted to make a comment that spending more than 53% of a national budget in the military certainly does not help the health of people in the United States or in Africa or in Israel or anywhere. And I find it just a big incongruency to say that that would not be a type of funding that I would accept in my campaigns, because it is actually one of the biggest causes for pollution in the world. And that certainly affects everybody's health regardless.
But I realize that this is not the format, but Mary said something really important when she was talking about fiduciary responsibility. Could I offer my perspective on what she said? Would that be okay?
Yeah, I think, yes, that's fine. We're somewhat informal here. Go ahead.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. Mary is right. The notion of fiduciary responsibility is complicated. What I would offer is two things, multiple things. I'm an extrovert. I think out loud. The first is, like Mary, I am a PERS beneficiary. I've been on faculty at OHSU since 1999, so I'm a Tier 2 beneficiary. So I understand that perspective. The second I would say is this. There is absolutely no question that our pension system is underfunded. That is a legacy from legislatures long ago who made some really imprudent decisions that we are living with the consequences of, and frankly, will not get out of for another 15 to 20 years when most of our Tier 1 beneficiaries have passed on. And that sounds crass, and I don't mean it that way, but it's a simple fact. The third thing I would say is, on the one hand, fiduciary responsibility does not, Mary's right, it does not simply mean maximizing returns. On the other hand, as somebody who's co-chaired the budget committee for many, many years and served as a co-chair of a subcommittee for many years before that, what I know is this: every public employer that pays into PERS pays a certain percentage of payroll every single year into the PERS system to meet that employer's fiduciary obligation, financial responsibility to fund PERS. When the main pension fund, when the Oregon Public Employee Retirement Fund is better funded, that amount drops. The percentage that they have to pay in drops. And if you think about something like a $10.2 billion state school fund, which pays for K-12 education, if you drop the average percentage even 1% by making sure that the pension fund itself is doing better, that's a lot of money for teachers. That's a lot of money for extending the school year. That's a lot of money for things that we all believe in. So is fiduciary responsibility a broader term than simply just growing the pension fund? Yes. And my budget experience at the statewide level tells me that growing the pension fund is a way to also meet goals that we all share. More money in public education, more money in healthcare, more money in forest fire mitigation, more money in, I can just keep going, right? Because
all right, but I'm going to cut you off there though.
Sure, that's fine.
Sorry, just in the interest of time, I
Sure,
appreciate
but I
it.
just wanted to add that perspective.
For sure. Yeah, and just also in the interest of fairness, we're going to try to keep this on schedule. And I think you both have shared a lot of good thoughts with us. How about we each give you each 60 seconds just for some closing thoughts? And Elizabeth, would you mind just going first? You can finish your thought if you'd like. 60 seconds, and then Mary will go to you.
Thanks. I want to say something really important. I called around to talk with some Green Party members over the past couple of days because I thought it was important for people to have more opportunities to ask me questions. One of the questions that came up was, do I see the Green Party as a spoiler party? And the answer is categorically no. I think our political system thrives when we have multiple parties. Whoa, Amy, I see what you mean. Sorry. I think our political system thrives when we have multiple groups coming to the table with really important perspectives. Do I think we have to all be careful about making sure that we don't, as the old expression goes, cut off our nose to spite our face? Yes, I do. But I am grateful to the Green Party playing an active role in Oregon politics. And I've been proud to work closely with Green Party members over my time in public office. And I'm proud to do so going forward, regardless of who you nominate. But I certainly hope to be your candidate and to continue to work closely with you going forward for our shared goals. Thanks for your time today.
Thank you.
Wow, is someone there helping you with the timer? Because that was like exactly 60 seconds.
Yeah, it was perfect.
I've had altogether too much experience over the past year.
Thank you very much. All right, Mary, you have the floor.
Thank you. I guess I would like to just raise a couple 3 points. One is, I can tell you, having negotiated for the faculty, that yes, we're very clear that underfunding PERS means underfunding all of our public services, shortchanging our kids, shortchanging our teachers. We saw it clearly in the Portland teachers strike. There should be far more money in those classrooms. We need to make sure there is in the future. And I don't think we have to still be careful about how we invest PERS. And what we need to be doing is figuring out how we stop underfunding our pension system and everything else that we're doing here in this state. The second thing I wanted to bring up is the potential for other things. I've been working with local organizations about risk bonding. For instance, we face this impending catastrophe on the banks of the lower Willamette, where we have these aging tanks filled with fossil fuels and toxic chemicals. We know what's going to happen in an earthquake of any size, never mind the big one with release of toxic chemicals.
We're
Thank
at
you.
1 minute.
Thank
Please
you very
feel
much.
free to place anything relevant in the links, though. If there's environmental issues you want us to read more about, that would be terrific.
Will do.
Thanks a lot.
We really appreciate you both being here, and we look forward to collaborating with both of you in some fashion, regardless of however this turns out in the future. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank
you. You're welcome to stick around, but I think if you have other things to do, which I'm sure you're both busy people, you are free to go.
Thanks for your time today.
Thank you.
All right, so we are at 1:20 congressional candidate updates. So Justin and Joe Meyer and Andy Townsend, if they're here. I assume 5 minutes for you all as well.
Yeah, is Joe with us?
I see someone named Joe. I'm not sure.
Joe's here.
Yay, okay.
Joe, do you want to go first, or do you want me to?
I'd love to go first.
Go for it. Andrea sent me a message. She sends her apologies. She can't make it. She's somewhere with bad service, but we will share some information on her behalf. All right, go for it. I love it. Look at that.
All right.
Cheers. So this is just basically an update on my campaign. Mostly it's been about getting and building a website, doing some writing, and most of my time is collecting signatures. My first sign looked like this. And my first strategy, just to give you an idea of what I'm coming from, was I just stood at the Hollywood Farmers Market for a couple of hours, and I didn't even approach people. I got about 6 signatures an hour, which was a pretty low rate. I went to the Alberta Street Fair and did the same thing, got about the same thing. And then I was more proactive. I went to the King's Farmers Market and started to approach people. I would say, hi, I'm Joe. I'm running for Congress on a anti-war, anti-genocide platform. And if I get 300 signatures, I'll get my statement in the voters pamphlet. And that worked pretty well. And if they still didn't sign, I just kept on talking like I'm running for Congress because I think there's been a coup in this country. The foreign and corporate interests won, and we the people lost. They beat us, and they continue to beat us simply and legally and openly by controlling our elections. They invest millions of dollars in a few candidates and get billions back in tax breaks, subsidies, and weapons of war. I call it a coup because this regime doesn't care about the life of U.S. citizens. 500,000 live on the street, 30% of families are homeless, 16% of children live in poverty. Nuclear annihilation looms, and our environment is increasingly unstable. Since Reagan, this regime has transferred $50 trillion of wealth back up to the 1% and eviscerated the middle class. I call it a coup because this regime attacks the liberty of U.S. citizens. Students are violently denied the right to protest. FISA 702 kills our right to privacy, and costly cop cities proliferate. This regime is complicit in genocide. They sent $300 billion to Israel and continue to veto peace. We receive back heartbreaking images of children, torture, and massacres. They deny reality and send more bombs. I think that's really one thing that changed my view of reality, or like, what world am I living in when I see images every day in the news of mass graves and bombed hospitals and really torn apart children. And Tony Blinken gets on the news and says he's going to ask Israel about that. And Lloyd Austin says they have a procedure at the Pentagon and hasn't turned anything up yet. I think we need such rapid change, you could call it a revolution, and I want a peaceful one. I'm too old to go into the street. I want a smaller U.S. government that starts with the life and liberty of U.S. citizens. You're not free if you're hungry on the street. I want energy independence to eliminate the need for wars, the excuse for wars, to save the environment and employ America. I want our Bill of Rights back, and I want every child to be our child. I think it is mostly about money and politics. As many of you probably know, AIPAC is buying up Democratic primaries across the country, and they're very good at it. They spent $12 million in New York to get rid of Bowman. In this race, they spent $2 million to get rid of Jayapal. It's not really a democracy, folks, if a foreign entity selects our Congress. So I urge you to vote for peace, vote for democracy, and vote green. Thank you for your attention.
Thanks,
Joe. Oh, was
Joe.
my mic off?
No, we heard you.
No, we heard you. Yeah, we still have, is our other candidate here?
No, I was saying she sent me a text message. She's
that's right.
Rough service, but we will share her campaign information in that follow-up email that I'm going to send to everybody. I know that she was down here at Oregon Country Fair and talking to folks at Fair about it, which was probably a pretty good idea. I probably should have done that myself, at least gone on the bus lines or something.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I guess you have the floor to do your 5 minutes?
I guess it's me.
Unless there's still someone else in the queue that I'm not seeing.
I think it's just the three of us
Okay.
who have received the nomination from the last nominating convention.
Okay.
Thanks, Joe. Yeah, and I've just been super busy, but I definitely want to collaborate with both Joe and Andy going forward, and ideas share about this congressional campaign, and and maybe even draw on Mike's experience, because Mike's run for this same seat that I'm going for right now, Congressional District 4, a few times, and I appreciate him running as a green and sort of laying the groundwork for the rest of us. I'll read you my voters pamphlet. I guess I'll start there. My voters pamphlet statement. So I'm running to be a voice in Congress for the most vulnerable among us, at home and abroad. So that's kind of captures, as an aside here, that sort of captures what my whole campaign is centered around, is being a voice for the most vulnerable among us. A study by Martin Gillens from Princeton and Benjamin Page from Northwestern looked at 20 years of data and found that the preferences of the average American appear to only have a minuscule, near zero, statistically non-significant impact upon public policy. That elected officials only do the bidding of the rich should come as no surprise, since the two major parties are owned and operated by billionaires and corporations. Who will speak for the rest of us? Who will put people, the planet, and peace before the interests of the powerful? I will be that person in Congress for you. And then I go on to talk about people, planet, and peace, just like Joe's t-shirt. So under people, not only do we have a homeless crisis that is a societal failure, but according to United Way, nearly half of all working Oregonians struggle to pay their bills every month, and that number is growing. Meanwhile, corporations are bringing in record profits while raising prices on all of us. We have to ask ourselves, what kind of country do we want? One where a few have a lot and the very have very little, or the many have very little. This is not justice. As far as the planet goes, under planet, we have a duty to care for our land, air, and water. Our health and the health of our planet depends on it. I don't think any of us would put a price on our health, but our ruling class often does. We need elected leaders who will stand up to those who pollute and exploit the environment in the pursuit of profit. And last but not least, peace. According to a report by the National Priorities Project, the U.S. spent 62% of our discretionary budget in 2023 on militarism and war. That means out of every $5 in federal discretionary spending, less than $2 was used to invest in people and communities. Not only could that money be better used to help everyday Americans, but we need to have more respect for human life. Our foreign policy is not only costly, it is often immoral. And then I have a call for people to visit the website for more information. So yeah, I'll maybe real quick, I can, well, I'll just put it in the link later, but we've started a website. It's justinforcongress.org. You can also email me at justin@justinforcongress, the number 4.org. I've got a small team here. We've got someone helping get up all like the social media sites. So we've got some IT help. We have a treasurer in Tricia Driscoll. She has a lot of experience in that role and has run for Congress herself in California. So she's been very helpful in lending her knowledge and experience. We're making, we've got some buttons that we're making. Vote green. At the bottom it says people, planet, peace. There's the peace version. We have a planet version. And then we've got just the good old Green Party sunflower one. So we've been handing those out to folks, trying to spread the word. Actually, I was going to maybe drop a few in the mail for Joe and Andy as well, if they would like to pass them out. We're making them ourselves. Yeah, and then I've been talking to folks with the Green Congressional Campaign Committee about trying to sort of spread the word, and they've offered their help and maybe making some videos and stuff. So I'll be happy to share that with Joe and Andy. I encourage everyone to seek co-nominations from the other parties that have approached us. Like I would encourage Joe and Andy to go request an endorsement or a co-nomination from the Working Families Party, maybe the Progressive Party. If they haven't already closed their things, we need to look into that. I think Working Families Party did close their process, but we were kind of hoping they would reopen it for us. We'll see. But yeah, we've raised $1,000 so far. We've got a matching campaign going on right now. That $1,000 will match the first $1,000 raised, actually. So as soon as we raise $1,000 from other people, we have a donor willing to match that. So we're getting that out there. I don't know. I think that's probably close to my 5 minutes. So I'll stop there.
Yeah, that's almost perfect. And do we want to see if anybody wants to raise their hands and ask a question? Or two? A reminder, you got to go to more plus 3 dots to raise your hand if you have a question. Because Zoom.
All right. You guys are easy. Well, again, we'll share everyone's links for all the campaigns in the follow-up email.
Okay, so we are almost at 1:35. we carved out that space in case there was additional Q&A, but if no one has a question, I'll bring something up, even though I feel a little silly bringing it up. I misread our earlier information about treasurer because I was trying to juggle a bunch of stuff. But Justin, do we want to mention to people that we are looking for a treasurer?
It's not a bad idea. Yes, we have a long-time treasurer. Ken Adams has served the party for a long time, and he's wanting to sort of turn his attentions to other things in his life, like his grandchildren and his duties at the radio station that he works at. So if you or someone you know is interested in being the treasurer for the Pacific Green Party, please be in touch. You can email us at info@pacificgreens.com or outreach@pacificgreens.org, or and again, we can include that in the follow-up email as well.
Yeah, this is a little time sensitive because I believe we only have till the early fall, because Ken has to move on to other things. So if you would like to be our treasurer, or you know somebody who would be good for that, please reach out and let us know. Thanks.
Thomas has a question in the chat. Do we motion for a vote for who to support, or what's the process from here? Not really. I mean, so all the candidates that you've heard from today, except for the treasurer, have already been nominated at our first nominating convention. So hopefully you will support all those candidates. The treasurer, we have two choices and none of the above. So there will be three choices on your ballot that you'll receive. You'll be able to vote for either Elizabeth Steiner, the Democrat, or Mary King, the Working Families Party candidate. Or you could choose, hey, I'd rather not have either one, and we'll just roll with no green nominee and none of the above. So you'll have those choices. I hope that answered your question, Thomas.
And am I remembering right? 8 o'clock this Tuesday is the cutoff. Am I reading this right? Because my screen's weird again. For turning in a vote, I mean.
Yes. You'll have until 8 p.m. on Tuesday, which is sort of like the typical voting cutoff in Oregon. Tuesdays are when people are used to voting. 8 o'clock is when people are used to having the cutoff. So we were just trying to be consistent on that. So you'll have a few days.
I know your plate is full, Justin, so forgive me for asking this. Will we be able to archive this recorded convention if people want to go back and listen to the candidates again, or will we not have enough time to do that by Tuesday evening?
We will do our best to get this up on YouTube and also provide that link in the follow-up email. So again, I'm going to try to summarize a lot of what we've talked about today and provide everyone with as much information as I can when we follow up after this meeting.
Terrific. Thanks, because that'll be a break for people who maybe wanted to attend, but for some reason they couldn't make it.
Yes. All right. Well, I don't have a presentation really prepared for the presidential nominating convention. Should we go ahead and talk about that, Amy?
I'm up for it as long as other folks are ready.
All right. Let's just move ahead. Maybe we can just give people some time back today. So here's what I know about the presidential nominating convention. From the last convention, just to remind everyone, we get 11 delegates as the state of Oregon to send to the National Presidential Nominating Convention, which is August 15th to 18th. Anyone is welcome to register and attend that, as far as I know, but we definitely need 11 delegates, and we have them. So the membership picked 6 last time, and then they also voted to give the SEC permission to find the next 5 because we didn't have 11 candidates at that time. So the SEC and I worked together to find the rest of the delegates. So we have 11. 9 of them will go to Jill Stein and 2 will go to Jasmine Sherman. That was the result of the last election. And then in the event that Jill wins the presidency, we'll need some for that to electors to go to Washington, D.C. and officially make Jill the president. So we'll follow up with more information on that. But I guess we could probably just open it up to questions. If anyone has any questions around the presidential race, I'll do my best to answer them. I've been in contact with the campaign here and there, so I might be able to answer your question depending on what it is. Or we can just speed right along.
I can place the A&M link in the chat, and just to stress in case people forget, you obviously can attend even without being a delegate. I've done a few A&Ms myself. The only good thing about COVID, as far as I'm concerned, is that it made remote conventions kind of the norm, and that's a big break for folks like me that don't have a lot of time and resources. But by all means, if you can afford to attend, do. There's always something great to learn and see there.
Absolutely. All right. Well, let's just keep moving. Our bylaws say that we need to decide on when our next convention is going to be, and then tentatively schedule the convention after that. So maybe we can open it up for discussion. Again, just please raise your hand. And if you have any suggestions on when that next convention date should be, please speak now. I think in our upcoming events website, someone had sketched out a proposal for maybe having another convention in maybe late November or early December after the election. We're definitely going to need to have one sometime in January for the SCC seats that are open. And also we need to elect one more delegate to the Green Party US to national. So in January, we definitely need to have one. So let's start thinking about dates in January and whether or not we want to have another convention before that. Maybe we don't. Thoughts?
Oh, there it goes again. Sorry. I guess I would just request that, do we want to cover really quick what business we would need to conduct at quote unquote an extra convention if we have one before January?
I believe there was some talk of maybe making that about bylaws or it'd be a business convention. It wouldn't be a nominating convention. Perhaps it would just be discussion of bylaws. I don't know that it's necessary. I'm inclined to just have our next one in January, but unless someone wants to make the case for having one in before that.
Yeah, I personally am kind of neutral, especially since we don't yet know how the national elections are going to turn out. I personally feel like January is acceptable, but I'm welcome to hearing other people's thoughts.
All right. I don't hear any strong opinions about having an additional convention before January. I think we're looking at the calendar right now. We've got the Saturdays. Typically when we have our conventions is on a Saturday. Those Saturdays are the 4th, the 11th, the 18th, and the 25th. I think the 4th, right on the heels of New Year's, might be not ideal. I guess Inauguration Day is on Monday the 20th. I'm suggesting maybe the 18th or the 25th, and we could put this to a vote also. We could include this on the ballot that you all get afterwards. So maybe we just do it that way. I think that's how we did it last time. Everybody okay with it? Just putting it to a vote, including it on the ballot?
Sure.
I'll take that as a yes for everybody. Bob says yes. Okay.
I have no objections.
All right. So like the 11th, 18th, and 25th could be the choices, I suppose. And then tentatively, when would be the one after that? Perhaps in the spring. And again, this is tentative. The second one. All right. No strong opinions on this. All right. Well, we'll just include those 3 dates in January for us all to choose from. We'll vote on those. And then tentatively, I guess, just so we're in agreement with the bylaws, maybe end of April, like 3 months from then. We're not bound to that, though. All right.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say it's now 1:45. We carved out an extra 15 minutes of space. Do you want to go ahead and go over the voting instructions? Let people have a look at the ballot if screen share allows that? Would that be a good idea?
I don't think our IT folks have like the ballot ready to go yet. We were unclear exactly who was going to be on it up until today.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, the ballot you'll be able to rank the candidates basically. You'll have Elizabeth Steiner, you'll have Mary King, and none of the above for treasurer. That's the only nomination that we're currently entertaining right now. And then we'll also vote on the January convention date. Yeah, I think we kind of already covered it. You have until Tuesday at 8 p.m. to return your ballot. Please do that. The email will come from OPA vote. That's the mechanism we use for voting right now. That's about it. Am I missing anything as far as that goes?
Oh, Connor mentioned something he wanted to say about conventions in the chat, but he doesn't have his hand up, so I'm not sure if he wants to speak. Connor, did you want to say something about the future conventions? You'll have to unmute, Connor. For some reason, it's not allowing me to unmute you. Oh, Justin, can you unmute Connor? Because I can't find the thing that'll let me unmute him. It's so weird.
I just clicked the ask to unmute.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Connor, put your... Oh, okay. Because I was going to say, if you still want to speak, you can type out your comment and I'll read it. But maybe follow up with us in IO, because I know you can post there, and we have a whole subgroup about conventions. Yeah, for folks who have groups IO, we have a whole subgroup there about conventions. It's not the most perfect social media platform, but there are definitely worse ones. So folks who have follow-up thoughts should use their IO account or look into creating one, and we can have more discussions there in the future on your own time.
Yeah, and I'll say this about Groups IO. I know people can get inundated with emails. I certainly can. So just because you sign up for a group doesn't mean you need to get every email that gets like input into that group. So you can change your settings to get like a digest, or you just get like one email a day, or maybe you just want one email a week with a summary. If you go to settings, you can change those settings so that you're not getting swamped with emails, but you're still kind of plugged into what's going on. I think Connor just wanted to say something about our aspirational goal of maybe having a hybrid meeting in the future. I know there's been a lot of talk. Folks want to get together in person, but we still want to have room for a remote, possibility, or a remote option, I should say, for our membership. Maybe folks, again, we don't want cost or health or anything else to be prohibitive to participation. So we could explore perhaps putting on some sort of hybrid convention in the future, or maybe just like a social convention where we don't necessarily have to have business, but we can get together and talk about green ideas and sort of brainstorm a way forward.
That sounds good, because for some of us, remote is best, but other people might enjoy meeting face to face. Before we adjourn, do you want to put out the fundraising link one more time? Or at least, or just remind people?
Yeah,
where it is?
we always got to ask for that money. All right. And if you want to donate to my campaign or any other campaigns, I'm sure we would all appreciate that as well. But here's the link.
Times are hard, but we have to look out for each other.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, thank you all for being here. Thank all the candidates for showing up and giving us an update on what's going on. We really appreciate you running as Greens and representing the party. I'm really proud of the folks that we have representing the party right now. Appreciate you guys.
Yes, thank you. We really appreciate that you could attend and provide your input. And don't forget to watch for your vote. Can they reach out to you, Justin, if for some reason the ballot doesn't show up?
Absolutely. Yeah. I'll put my personal email address in the chat because right now I may not, if you send it to like campaigns or conventions at pacificgreens.org, I don't know that I'll get that.
And I'll just say myself, based on past experience, when in doubt, always check your spam file, because I use Rise Up and in some ways it's good, but if anything, it's very overzealous about interpreting certain things as spam, and you have to kind of mess with it to customize it. So always check your spam folder first if you don't see a ballot, and reach out to Justin after that if you have any issues.
Yes, and if I heard some feedback that I sent an email from the conventions committee through Nation Builder this morning with the convention link, and I got some feedback that not everyone got that email. So if you don't receive anything from us by tomorrow, please reach out and we will maybe send it to you another way.
And do we know what the turnaround time will be once once we announce the results? Do we know what the turnaround time is for that, or are we not sure yet?
We should be able to announce the results within 24 hours. I mean, just give us a little time to kind of get organized and draft the email response for everybody with the results, but I don't anticipate it would take us longer than 24 hours. So you can expect to see the results on Wednesday.
Good. That'd be terrific. I guess we can adjourn then unless anybody else has anything they want to say or bring up.
Yeah, thanks everyone for coming. Yeah, Max, I see you in the chat. Great question today. Thank you for posing that. Free Palestine.
Yep. Thank you, folks. Hope to see you
Thank you,
soon.
everybody.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.